Hello there everybody, I'm bringing you something a bit different for the Tactics series, and that's a city assault battle. I'm defending as the Seleucids against my opponent, Deku Trash, who some of you may know from TotalWarCast, is playing as Carthage. If you want to skip the army layout, then click on the box on screen now, or check the description for the timestamp. Personally, I'd just watch the whole thing. We set up some loose rules for this battle: 12,000 funds, you need at least 35 units, and don't go crazy with the artillery or siege towers. Unfortunately, Deku was having connection issues and kept disconnecting in the army selection screen, and because of this, he had about 2,100 funds left that I think he planned on using as experience funding for units and just forgot. Normally, defenders get 10% less funds than attackers, but because of this blurb, I only had 300 less funds than Deku as opposed to 2,400, so I guess I have a bigger advantage than the game would normally recommend. The battle takes place at Cyrene, which is currently at medium size. Cyrene is coastal, so most of its south is guarded by the sea and part of its north is overlooked by a large cliff, meaning that assaulting can only happen from the west, the north and some of the northeast, though the cliff does cut off the northeast from the north. Remember to take a look at the tactical overview in the bottom right so you know which way north, south, east and west is. Getting into the armies, I'll start off with Deku's. First up we have the General's Bodyguard. Weirdly, this unit is pretty much Carthage's weakest cavalry unit. Its stats are comparable to the mercenary Celtic light horse, but it has half the troop count, so really it's just quite a weak piece of cavalry. Next, Deku has one unit of Giant Ballista, a piece of fixed artillery with a huge narrow range and 15 shots. It can usually take down at least one section of the walls by itself. This is followed by two heavy onagers, which pack more of a punch than the fixed artillery and are mobile, but have less range and cost twice as much. 4 Libyan Peltasts, fairly good mid-tier missile infantry that can cope in a melee attack for a short while. 4 Mercenary Balearic Slingers, one of the best slinger units in the game. These guys are pretty powerful for the amount of range they have and carry plenty of ammo. 8 Libyan Hoplites, the lowest level of spear infantry. Deku has used these just to fill the space among his ranks, and in terms of spear units they are much better than the Eastern Spearmen or the equivalent price. Quite weak overall, but have a pretty good defense, troop count and are able to hold units at bay for a considerable time. Not great at attacking though. 2 Mercenary Gallic Warriors. Being lower end sword infantry, there isn't much to say about this lot other than they are quite average troops that break easily. They're not as bad as the 4 Mercenary Iberian Swordsmen Deku is fielding though. These are essentially slight downgrades in all categories of the Gallic troops, but with a higher melee attack. 2 Mercenary Italian Swordsmen. These boys have a much higher armor value than the Iberians and pretty much the same melee attack, making them the best sword infantry Deku is actually fielding, even though they are still quite low tier sword infantry. Finally, a whopping 8 grand has been spent on 7 Sacred Band spear units, an excellent spear unit with a huge morale and heavy armor that doesn't break easily. They provide a morale boost to nearby troops and are resistant to heat. Not sure if that'll affect them here. We are fighting at Cyrene in Africa during summer, so it is possible. The Sacred Band and sheer number of them that Deku is bringing will provide the biggest challenge if he gets them inside the walls and in combat with my lower tier units. Onto my army. First off, I have 3 Silver Shield Swordsmen, an excellent high quality sword infantry unit, one of which is my general. Each unit provides a morale boost to other troops and are disciplined so they don't run as easily. Next we have 2 units of Agema Cavalry, the weakest shock cavalry to the Seleucids. These are actually considered quite high tier shock cavalry and are very powerful. They provide a morale boost to nearby troops and don't break easily also. With very high health and armor, they can survive longer than normal shock cav in melee. 4 units of Javelin Men, the weakest missile unit. They are cheap, fast and can throw all their ammo in 1 minute, softening up enemy lines quickly. 5 units of Hillmen. These are also just the cheapest melee infantry available, mainly used as a distraction. They do have a bonus versus other infantry and can provide valuable flanks if the opportunity arises. 7 Levy Pikemen, the weakest form of pike unit available. They can still cordon off streets and gateways extremely well, but if they're caught with their pikes down or attacked from behind, they're quite weak and can fall apart quickly, especially under missile fire. 1 unit of Persian Hoplites. This was a filler unit I used when I had a small amount of funds left. They are cheap spear infantry with a good bonus versus cavalry and decent defense, so they are ideal for holding out on walls or in tight spaces. 2 Silver Shield Pikemen, an elite pike unit with high defense, health and armor. It takes a lot to break these guys and they can provide a morale buff to those around them. 2 Thorax Pikemen. While definitely not as good as the Silver Shields, they are mid-tier pike infantry which have a decent armor and health and can hold out against missiles a bit longer than the levies. 4 Thorax Swordsmen, a strong mid-tier sword infantry unit. These guys are good at everything: defense, attack and can deliver devastating flanks when they throw their javelins. Lastly, we have 5 Thuros Spears, a mid-tier spear unit. They are a good maneuverable unit that can get into an area quickly to provide a reliable defense. Okay, so the battle has begun. Deku immediately started firing all his artillery toward the main gatehouse and towers, while I sent out my Agema cavalry out the eastern entrance of the city. Deku split his forces into two and focused them on the northern and western entrances, completely ignoring the eastern entrance, which to him is hidden by a large cliff overlooking the city, making it perfect to move my powerful cavalry around behind his army. While Deku is firing on the northern gate, he has also issued his 3 siege towers and battering ram on the west side to move up, and also moved his extra 1 siege tower that is approaching the northern wall by itself. I had played a couple of sieges recently and decided it was better to avoid being on the walls due to the possibility of large amounts of artillery shattering a wall before I could even move off it. Instead, my plan was just to man the streets and react to whatever Deku threw at me. My pikemen guarded all possible streets he could come through, backed up with missiles and swordsmen behind them. I tried keeping them back from the walls themselves for fear of rubble falling and killing large portions of units.
At the double!
As Deku's lone tower approached the northern wall, I broke off 2 units of thorax swordsmen and 2 units of thorough spears to quickly get there and defend that tower. Approaching with only 1 unit of mercenary Gallic warriors didn't seem like much of a threat. It was an odd choice by Deku, and I feel the awkward placement of the tower would have been better utilised when his other towers were approaching, so I had less manpower to devote to it. After the towers of the northern entrance fell, Deku started moving up his final siege tower. Meanwhile, his lone northern siege tower had reached my walls, just as some of my units had scaled them, and the fighting broke out. His Gallic warriors would be no match for my thorax swordsmen, so I just let them fight it out on the walls. In the south of the city, Deku's towers and ram were very close to the walls, and so I pulled back my pikemen on both sides to ensure I couldn't be flanked at all, retreating further into the city to block off the 3 streets leading to the victory point.
Clean assault this time!
Now Deku's towers were all against the walls, and he started moving his infantry up. At the north gate, his spearmen were capturing the gatehouse, and soon he would have the gate open for his men to come through safely. He still kept firing all his artillery at the gatehouse though, which I don't really know why. He may have been trying to break down the gate, but at 98% damage he stopped, instead letting his men capture it. My shock cavalry were still hidden, and I kept creeping them up now that Deku's forces had abandoned his general and his artillery. The fight for the lone siege tower was over, with my thorax swordsmen and thorough spears taking virtually no damage. I then let them run lengthways along the wall to apply some pressure to the enemy units capturing the northern gatehouse. On the south, Deku had captured the gatehouse and had the range to start shooting at my levy pikemen from the towers. I really should have pulled them back some, but at the time I felt they could hold out long enough even with the tower fire, and I was busy with my cavalry flank. Deku would start moving his artillery closer to the city walls and left his general out in the open, so I charged my shock cavalry into his artillery, doing massive damage very quickly.
To up for glory!
All the while it seemed like Deku hadn't even noticed, and he continued to funnel all his troops through the gatehouse. Only when I was approaching his general did Deku react. He slammed his general into my Agema cavalry, pretty much losing his general instantly, and after a quick melee my Agema hadn't lost a man. Now that Deku was in my walls proper, he could now see my entire army and plan his attack of the streets. My cavalry were still busy outside taking out his last artillery unit, and because he owned the gate, I couldn't send them into this side of the city.
Come and have a go, you bastards! Do not shout at the enemy! It only encourages them!
Deku then entered the south of the city through the west gate with all but one of his units down there. Because I was mostly pikemen focused, he positioned his spearmen at the front and started using up all his missile units to whittle down my men, knowing that I couldn't really move forward without compromising the flanks of a single pike unit. Deku had gotten off the northern gatehouse, so I ran my 4 units that were on the wall west along the wall to man the gatehouse. He had control of it, and I thought if I could capture it back, I could let my cavalry run in behind him. However, until he got out of its zone of control, it wouldn't capture for either of us. I kept my troops on the walls, looming over his to present a threat, letting him know that if he charged my pikemen, he'd have 4 units coming down from behind him to deal with.
Swordsman! Put your spears! Advance at speed! Spearmen at the ready!
He had more than enough manpower to deal with both though, and seized the opportunity to charge my northern pikemen, while they didn't have their pikes equipped.
Forget the enemy! Be afraid of me!
Meanwhile in the centre he was firing with 4 units of missiles on my silver shield pikemen, doing considerable damage to my strongest unit. On the south it was a similar situation, with Deku firing all his missiles against my pikemen first. I had noticed that he left 1 unit outside the walls and began charging my shock cavalry down to them, hoping to take them out by surprise. I had tried diamond formation, but the speed was way too slow to catch his units, so I changed last minute, just managing to rout them while they were pulling into the gatehouse. I sent my cavalry back north now that Deku had thrown all but 2 units at my pikemen up there, and I had reinforced with more thorough spears. I was hoping I could now capture the gate if I could just take out 2 of his units in the zone of control. However, when I tried to run down the towers to attack, my units ran left and right along the wall. At first I thought it was a bug, but now I think it was because the towers were destroyed, so units can't move up and down them. It worked out well for me though, as the ones that ran left diverted Deku's attention to that tower, allowing me to capture the gates with an extra unit I had on top of the gatehouse. Deku even went as far to charge up the walls with his sacred band, clearing the way for my cavalry to come in and completely flank the northern attack. At the same time, I was getting sick of the missile fire in the centre and was losing a whole unit of Silver Shield pikemen, so I pushed out my hillmen to soak up some missile fire and to hopefully lead some of his units toward me in range of my javelin men. I tried to also make a quick dash for some of his missile units further south, but didn't micro my men enough, and they got caught halfway down toward him. Now a unit of Silver Shield pikemen had been completely destroyed, opening up a small gap in my defences. I decided to push through it with Silver Shield swordsmen and some more pikemen, and attack the units in front of me that were now still fighting the hillmen facing the wrong direction. As soon as they engaged, my cavalry up north had just come through the gate, and Deku had spotted it straight away, pulling back some of his units to deal with them. However, I just ignored everything I could and started pushing my way down the steps toward the large body of missile units and men that were now engaged with my silver shields. It took a lot of clicks and formation changing, but they just managed to get through and connect with the missile units, wreaking havoc among them.
Engage! Trample them! Forward! Attack their position! Engage! And the double! Quick march!
Because it was all kicking off and my units on the south were taking a beating, I pushed them forward also as they were facing mostly missile units. My cavalry connected with the central infantry battle and routed the enemy pretty quickly, so I pulled them back to let my infantry deal with the enemy infantry Deku had chasing my cavalry. I had one in the south also, with just a few missile units remaining, so I chased in with my cavalry that had just escaped.
To a forward! At speed! Quick back! Quick back!
They desperately climbed up the wall, so I moved a unit of spearmen up to deal with them. The battle was pretty much over now. The north had held up surprisingly well, so I just moved up everyone around for one last final charge.
Riders, advance! Hold position! Advance at speed! Pikemen, form phalanx! Pack charge! By your command! Understood! Hold position! Hold men! Advance at speed! Riders! At the double! Hack forward! Double time! Bring advance! Order mark glory!
As I approached from behind, Deku charged a unit back to defend his rear, and I weaved my general in between them, followed by my cavalry, and did a last push to break the back of the enemy.
Quick march! Back! Back now! Quickly now! And the double! Riders at the double! Advance at speed! Hold position!
Lastly, there was the matter of the sacred band on the walls. I defended the entrance in case they came down and positioned missile units along the bottom of the wall and started forcing them to either rout or die up there. They chose the former and the battle was over.
Ready for orders. Faster reload! That's me!
So that's it for this battle. Even though Deku could have spent more money on his units, giving me the advantage, it was still a close fight and I thought it would be an entertaining one to show as I haven't done a city fight before. My cavalry attack was my saving grace as Deku's artillery didn't use all their ammo and I removed his general early on. Hopefully I can get more city assaults out as they are really fun to play. Let me know if it's something you'd like to see more of. That's all from me and I'll see you in the next one.